Good evening. My name is Sanshin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher of the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha here in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're a part of Empty Moon Zen. We had a rule when I began studying chemistry some half a century ago. Our professor allowed us to go into the final exam with a single index card. We could write down anything we wanted on the card. Chemical formulae, equations we might find helpful, properties of elements and chemical compounds, and I suppose as a last resort for the desperate, jokes. I didn't find it particularly useful. It seemed like you would take much too much time just trying to figure out what you would scribble down in a crabbed, minuscule script. Better to understand the principles and parlay them into an answer. I do, however, appreciate reducing a complex subject to a pithy phrase or two, or three. How better to tame the complex human mind than a simple phrase? And moving from the chemical to the dharmic, my teacher, James Muon Ford, used to like to say that there were 3 simple rules for Zazen. Sit down, shut up, and pay attention. It seems like a good opportunity to look at these and perhaps write them in indelible ink on the back of your hand for ease in reference. So, and this is not simply a suggestion, sit down. Let's look at the first of them, sitting down. Now, I've had acquaintances ask me how to meditate. Friends, relatives who are involved in yoga, acupuncture, any of a variety of practices who think that I might have some special insight to impart. I am, after all, a Zen priest. Surely I have access to the ultimate truths in practice. Of course, I say, though somewhat reluctantly, since I'm fairly sure of what is to come. Sit down, I tell them. Follow your breath. When you find your mind drifts, bring it back to the breath. What? They say, no mandalas? I always meditate with a mandala. No soothing, relaxing music? How am I to get in the mood? No one telling me where to direct my mind? No guided meditation? Just breathing? Yes, I say, just breathing. Just follow your breath. But that's not meditation. They seem to scoff and return to the latest Instagram posting. But that's it. No mandalas. No staring at candles while listening to pre-recorded sounds of waves breaking on the shore. No gentle words of spiritual encouragement. No, nothing complicated. Just sitting quietly and breathing. Nothing to stand between you and yourself. Oh, my predecessor at Spring Hill Zen back in Medford, Massachusetts, from whom I learned the finer points of Zen orientation, used to take a full half hour to just introduce newcomers to the practice, giving attention to what, where, and why you place your tongue, how to hold your hands and thumbs, full, half, or half-assed lotus, how to bow, why we bow, to whom we don't bow, long and involved and easily forgotten, though Zazen is, after all, such a simple practice, nothing magical. We find the Japanese term for sitting, za, in Zazen, seated meditation, in the zabuton, the seated mat that we place on the floor with the zafu. the round cushion that we sit on. When I was Shuso at the Boundless Way Temple in Worcester, Massachusetts, I would sit in the evening outside the door to the Zenda so that I could monitor when newbies arrived through the temple's front door. At first, I would take them aside and, aware of the constraints of time of my fellow practitioners already engaged in the practice, would try as best I could to cram all of those instructions in. Fortunately, the teachers took me aside finally and said, "Just tell them to sit down and follow their breath. The rest will come." 2,500 years ago, a young man, a prince, trying to come to terms with the realization that life was not a bed of roses, not the bed of roses his father had arranged for him, realizing that we had to contend with the thorns on the stems of those roses, as well as the stinging insects that seemed a natural part of all. That young man found a way to cope, sitting down under the Bodhi tree, shutting up and paying attention. Here we find that our ancestor, Eihei Dogen's collection of some 300 koans includes this story, telling us of Nanyue's take on sitting. Zen Master Mazu was an attendant to Nanyue and personally received the mind seal from him, exceeding his peers. Before that, he lived in the Kaiyuan monastery and did zazen all day long, knowing that Mazu was a Dharma vehicle. Nanyue went to him and said, "Great monastic, what do you intend by doing zazen?" Mazu said, I am intending to be a Buddha." Nanyue picked up a brick and started polishing it. Mazu said, "What are you doing?" Nanyue said, "I'm trying to make a mirror." Mazu said, "How can you make a mirror by polishing a brick?" Nanyue said, "How can you become a Buddha by doing zazen?" Mazu said, "What do you mean by that?" Nanyue said, "Think about driving a cart. When it stops moving, do you whip the cart or the horse?" Mazu said nothing. Nanyue said, "Do you want to practice sitting Zen or sitting Buddha? If you understand sitting Zen, you will know that Zen is not about sitting or lying down. If you want to learn sitting Buddha, know that sitting Buddha is without any fixed form. Do not use discrimination in the non-abiding Dharma. If you practice sitting as Buddha, you must kill Buddha. If you are attached to the sitting form, you are not yet mastering the essential principle." Mazu heard this admonition and felt that he had tasted sweet nectar. So it's not about posture, not about emulating the Buddha and all those statues of him serenely sitting cross-legged on a lotus blossom, hands folded in his lap, eyes cast down, spine straight, head upright. No, not about that, but it is, at one and the same time, just about that, about the posture, about sitting upright. Sit down and you are a Buddha. You don't become a Buddha. You don't become anything more than what you are in this very moment. Sit down, you are Buddha. Breathe in, and the Buddha breathes in. Breathe out, the Buddha breathes out. In the practice of Soto Zen, often the teacher's primary insight into a student's mind is just how he or she comports themselves, how they sit, how they bow, how they hold their hands in gasho, how they offer incense, play the mokukyo, the doan, but most of all, how they sit. You've not experienced the loving kindness of Zen practitioners until, when sitting facing the wall, feeling your body rebelling in pain against the strictures of the practice. One of the monitors walking in the zendo places his or her hands on your shoulders and very gently and very carefully straightens your back, correcting your posture. If the insentient speak the Dharma incessantly, then does not the human body, does not your body speak just as plainly? You could, if you wish, write down on the back of your hand in indelible ink, sit down, shut up, pay attention. But trust me, just sit, and just don't cling to the sitting.